Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm Zahara, as you probably know, and today I will be leading the service with
Leah.
Yes, and so we'll start with Hine Matov. And we'll also do a round halfway through the song. I will lead you guys as well as Leah, so I'll let you guys know. Hine Matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov shevet achim gam yachad. Okay, now we're gonna do the round. Half of you guys can follow me, and the other half can follow her. Hine Matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You beat me to the punch. I was going to introduce you guys.
Oh, really?
So Zahara and Leah, we're so grateful that you're leading us with music tonight. Really happy that you're with us. Thank you both very much. And good to see all of you. We've had a kind of cool week, but the rain is still needed. I think it's going to end pretty soon, but glad you're all with us tonight. Happy, as always, to celebrate Shabbat. And we're going to start by lighting our Shabbat candles. You can follow on page 120, and I'd like to invite Wendy Kaufman to come up to the Bima to do us that honor.
I've got Sahara to join me because I just want all of her voice.
Let's see, I think this works better.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzavonu, v'shebakashu.
Wait,
I know.
so that was the Kiddush.
I'm following her. One more time. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
There we go.
The Kiddush is for later tonight. What's that? Right. Okay, we're going to continue. You guys know Shalom Aleichem?
No, but I can sing it.
Okay. She doesn't know it, but she can sing it. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Page 142, we're going to sing Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bochem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei
Sefer Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech, Malachei HaMelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
What do you mean you don't know it? That was perfect.
I don't know how the guitar, that's why I meant.
Oh, okay, that was perfect. Well, please turn the page. We're going to continue with the Chatzi Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shmei Rabbah.
Balma divrach yirtei v'yamlik machutei b'chayechon uvyom echon uchayei dechol beit Yisrael bagala bagala uvizman kariv v'meru amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'alma me'almaya Yitbarach Yitbarach v'yishebach v'yitpa'ar v'yitronam v'yitnasen v'yithador v'yithalev v'yithalal shemei kudesha prichu le'olem min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiram b'alma v'meru amen.
Baruch Hu is on page 146. If you are able, please rise.
La 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 Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
We're on page 149 at the top of the page. Please join me. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. Page 151. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anuchi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשופטך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, לי כן קדושים לאליכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאת אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Page 157. Standing on the port shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Mi Chamocha is on page 158.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, אוסף אלה, מי כמוך באלים אדוני. מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, אוסף אלה.
Page 161, please join me at the top of the page. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom, L'Shalom, L'Chamidenu Shomreinu L'Chaim, Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha, Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom, L'Shalom, L'Chamidenu Malkeinu L'Chaim, Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha, Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things.
Page 164. Please rise. We are going to do the first three blessings of the Amidah together and then continue on our own. So I ask you to please be seated when you have finished.
Adonai sifet haitivtach ufi agite hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Velohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Velohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor, v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vizocher Chasdei Avot v'Imaot, Umevi Gula Lifnei V'Nehem, Laman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Hosea U'Mashiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechae Hakol atarav lehoshia, Mechalkel Chaim bechesed, Mechae Hakol berachamim rabim, Somek noflim verofech holim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar, Micha mocha ba'al kuverot, Umidom melach, melech meimit umechayed, umatzmiya heshua, v'ne'eman atah lechayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, mechaye hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, ukdoshim b'chol yom v'chalalu chasela, Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
I don't know this song on my guitar, so I'm just going to be singing it. Yehi leratson. If you guys know it, you can sing too. Imreifi vehegyon libi lefanecha. Page 180. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri v'goli. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, my rock and my redeemer. Yehi liratson, imreifi vehegyon libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri, Adonai tzuri v'goli.
At this point in our service, we think of those in need of healing on this Shabbat, healing of body, healing of spirit, and healing of heart. And we ask God to bestow the bracha, the blessing of refuah shlema, full and complete healing on the following men and women from our community or those known and loved by our congregation. Ilana Massey, Kevin Brackett, Michelle Camissia, Joshua Hyman, Diane Butler, Jesse Friedman, Marjorie Gilberg, Michael Blend, Jim Mates, Brenda Flood, Sharon Blevis, Joan Elson, Sherry Cohos, Lynn McManus, Walter Wilmert, Jerry Mautner, Kirk Whitlatch, Etta Kessler, David Rabb, Jensen Beach, Carl Smith, Aaron Ledden, Geraldine Kokich, David Mendelson, and Minnie Shostak. And if anyone has a name that they would like to add to this list, I invite you to please do so. The Misha Berach is on page 511.
Who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos to everybody. The Torah portion for this week is called Emor, and it's from the book of Leviticus, toward the very end of the book of Leviticus, which is the third book of the 5 books of Moses, kind of the fulcrum of the Torah itself. And in some ways, it is a book written by priests and for priests. A lot of scholars think that this book, the book of Leviticus, was actually written by priests, for priests, a kind of inside baseball sort of book that only they would understand. Unlike the book of Genesis, book of Deuteronomy that have great stories in them, this one has a lot of rules and laws and rituals that are really designed for the clergy of the community. And it contains several, in my opinion, very problematic passages and ideas for modern Jews. And I want to just share a few of them with you tonight. First of all, only men can be priests. I know in a time of egalitarianism, that's not an idea that I think most of us like. In the Reform movement, it took until 50 years ago that women could be rabbis. And we were one of the first. But in the Bible, only men can be priests. Problematic for many of us. And you could be a priest only if you were born from the house of Aaron. It was hereditary. And there was a caste system in place. So you couldn't train to be a priest like you can train to be a cantor or a rabbi. To be a priest, it's like a king or a queen. You had to, we have coronation tomorrow, right, King Charles? You had to be born into the house of Aaron in order to be a priest. The high priest could not attend his own parents' funeral. Imagine that. If your parents died, if you were a priest, if you were a high priest, you could not attend your own parents' burial. It was viewed as somehow polluting you, making you impure. A high priest, could not marry a widow or a divorcee, only a virgin from another priestly family. So if you were a high priest, you couldn't marry someone who was divorced, you couldn't marry someone who was a widow, you could only marry a virgin, and only a virgin from another priestly family. You could not be a priest if you had any physical defect or handicap. If you stuttered, if you had a limp, if you had a lazy eye, I don't know what it is, you could not be a priest. So that right away eliminates think of Stephen Hawking, lots of very brilliant, talented people who never could have become a priest in ancient Israel. And finally, another example of sort of a problematic text from this Torah portion. If the daughter of a priest has unsanctioned sex, if she has sexual relations that are somehow not acceptable within biblical law, she should be burned alive. Another example of kind of a problematic text, to many of us today at least. So needless to say, most, if not all, of these ideas are troubling to those of us living in Napa in 2023. And it raises a question, I think, as Jews here in synagogue on a Friday night. How should we handle problematic passages in the Torah? What do we do when we come across a reading like this that says you have to burn your daughter if she has unsanctioned sexual relations? Now, there are other examples in the Torah of texts and passages that are problematic to modern ears. The Akedah, the story of the binding of Isaac, that we read every Rosh Hashanah morning, where God tells Abraham and Sarah to sacrifice their son Isaac on a mountain. And they almost do it. Abraham he has the knife literally above Isaac's throat, and he almost kills him. To many people today, that's a problematic text. What do we do with it? Well, at least for the rabbis, we read it every Rosh Hashanah morning. But for some people, that's a problem. Or the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, also from the book of Genesis. What do we do with that passage where God wants to wipe out these twin cities? It's like wiping out Minneapolis, St. Paul, the twin cities of sin. And even though Abraham is able to find several righteous people in that city, God still wants to go through with it and does wipe out both of these cities. How do we deal with a passage like that? Or elsewhere in the Hebrew Bible, there are episodes of ethnic cleansing. People want to wipe out the Israelites. The Israelites want to wipe out the Philistines or the Canaanites. How do we deal with passages and stories that deal with ethnic cleansing? Something that still exists in the world and something that most of us today view as a very serious problem. It exists in the Hebrew Bible. To my mind, there are 4 basic ways to deal with problematic passages in the Torah. One is we can simply skip over them. When we're reading the Torah on someone's bar or bat mitzvah, or on a Saturday morning, or during the high holy days, we can just jump over them, just skip it. So we can be reading about something in the book of Genesis, and when we see the story of the binding of Isaac, just skip it, just don't even read it. Keep it in the Torah, not do anything to change the Torah, but just skip over it and just don't read it at all and pretend it's not even there. Another thing we can do is to delete it. When we write a new Torah scroll, just simply omit those problematic passages. Don't even include them in a Torah scroll that we're writing. And in that way, we're participating in what for many today is viewed as cancel culture. Just get rid of it completely. And whenever we see something problematic, just say, you know what, this might have been relevant at one point in Jewish history, but we're not going to read it anymore because it's no longer relevant, it's problematic, it's immoral, just get rid of it completely. Another thing we can do is apologize for them. Practice cultural relativism. Is this me? I'm hearing a popping here. Sorry about that. And when we come across a problematic passage, just say, well, slavery was practiced in the Bible, but that's because slavery was practiced by many other cultures and civilizations in the ancient Near East. So rather than critiquing the Jewish people for what they did, just understand it in its context. And we don't do it anymore, but in antiquity, let's just understand that in that time and in that place, it was okay. So that's practicing a little bit of cultural relativism. Or finally, we can reinterpret them. What does the story of the binding of Isaac mean? Well, maybe it doesn't literally mean God wanted Abraham and Sarah to sacrifice their son. Maybe it was a test of faith. Maybe it was a way of God seeing how far Abraham and his wife were willing to go in order to follow the will of God. And when we come across other problematic passages, don't interpret them literally, but interpret them more metaphorically and trying to figure out some sort of meaning for all of us today. So what I want to find out tonight is how would you handle problematic text? When you read something, and I can't imagine during the high holy days or on Shabbat, or if you've been here for a bar bat mitzvah, you haven't heard a passage that has troubled you. How should you deal with that? Do you ignore it? Do you apologize for it? Do you delete it? Or do you reinterpret it? Which of these responses do you find the most compelling when you read something in the Torah, which inevitably you will, that somehow seems problematic for those of us living today? Yeah, we'll start. Well, not both of you. You're a husband and wife. We'll start with Charles, and then we'll come back to you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah, and just hold it right up to you.
I think those last two are the closest to what I would say, meaning that there's a historical context to everything. We have to look at it in the context of the past. When we look at anything that's happened in the world, there's always a context. And so the context is important. And then you try to learn from that whatever you can that would be relevant for you today in your life and your context. So those two things are important. I think the only other thing I would say is that I think it's common, and I think a lot of us have an idea that the world is progressing and that there's changes over time, and that even as my wife likes to say, when there is growth in a child, so the same thing happens in the growth of humanity, and so there's a lot of change over time. And so I think what happened in the past, we can't judge the past or the people of the past under modern standards because they knew and understand things differently and lived in a different context.
Thank you. I'll go back to you, Shireen. Let me just say, I mean, I agree, and my go-to is always to keep the text as it is. That's our tradition, but try to come up with new interpretations to keep it meaningful in every generation. Sometimes that's easier than others. For example, in the book of Genesis, the story of Adam and Eve committing a sin. They're kicked out of the Garden of Eden. I can try to interpret what that means, not literally, but more figuratively about sin and transgression and ultimately about forgiveness. But for example, in this week's Torah portion, I'm not sure how to reinterpret a passage that talks about, if you have a speech defect or if you have some kind of physical ailment, you can't be a priest. I'm not sure how to reinterpret that, but that's certainly always where I try to go. Sometimes I think there are passages we just can't reinterpret, and then we have to really decide what do we do with them? Do we skip them? Do we delete them? Or do we just acknowledge that, yes, the Torah is not infallible? We're not Catholic. We don't believe in infallibility in Judaism. Maybe there are passages that just don't work anymore, and we keep them for the sake of tradition, but they just don't work for us anymore. Shireen, we'll go back to you. Other thoughts about how we can respond to problematic passages? Ellen, and then Shireen, we'll go back to you. And there are a lot of problematic passages in the Torah.
Yes, there are indeed a lot of problematic. But I think that we have to also realize that this was written almost 3,000 years ago by multiple people with different opinions and different education levels. And for the time, this is all the knowledge that they had. So you have to say, like AI coming into focus with us today, we're all still a little confused by it. 10 years from now, people will think, what do you mean? It's been around forever. And I think that we have to look at the Torah the same way. It was written with the knowledge that they had at the time. They did not know that a person with an eye that was drooping or a limp were 100% mentally there, and that may have been their rationale. So I think we have to read it as it was written and then reinterpret how we would want to live today.
Good, thank you. You know, I think that in some ways that's a critique of fundamentalism. You know, we're a Reformed congregation, and there are Jews, just as there are Muslims and Christians and other people of other religions that are literalists. They look at their sacred text, whether it's the Quran or the New Testament or the Bhagavad Gita or whatever their sacred text is, and they interpret it literally. We have ultra-Orthodox Jews who also interpret our Torah literally and believe it was literally revealed to Moses at Mount Sinai. I think what Ellen's talking about is what a lot of modern Bible scholars say when they approach the text. It was written by many different people with many different perspectives over many different centuries about 3,000 years ago. So of course, they were doing the best that they could, but what we have today, I don't necessarily want to say it's better, but we have 3,000 years of accumulated knowledge that helps us to look at different issues in a way that they just were not able to. For example, slavery or egalitarianism, as an example. Shireen.
Okay. The text on the divorced and widowed women, I remember years ago reading that, even before I met Charlie. And I was horrified that a priest could not marry a divorced and widowed woman. And with the knowledge I had at that time, I judged the text. But as the years went on and I started studying Torah a lot more deeper from different Jewish sects, I realized that, wow, there was a meaning for that. And it was because divorced women and widowed women had different sexual needs than a virgin. A virgin didn't really know what sex was, but a widowed woman did, and a divorced woman was. So she would expect the same thing from her high priest husband. So, and he was being a holy man, at times he had to separate himself. He didn't need a sexual energized woman, So there were reasons, but we don't know that if we don't study it, right? So it's just that there are different perspectives because at first glance, we look at it and we judge it. And really and truly, there are other reasons for the text. Like even the one you mentioned about, not being able to be a priest if you had an ailment. Well, we do that today too. I have a friend, his whole life he was dying to be a pilot. He doesn't even wear glasses. He sees perfectly. He goes and he does an eye test for the pilot exam, and they say, oh, you're colorblind, so you can't fly. And it's like, to him, he can see, and he's not colorblind at all if you ask him the different colors, but there's a deeper level of color when you do take a pilot license, and you need to be able to know. So we do it today, that certain jobs you can't do because you may have an ailment. So I think in a deeper study of the Torah will lead us to see that there were reasons why things were not allowed.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts? I mean, I think we can end on that note. I think the study of Torah is critical. I think unless you study our tradition deeply, you're not going to be able to respond to it in a way that makes it relevant to you. So whether you find the texts not necessarily offensive or problematic, or you do find them problematic or offensive, I think the key is just to be knowledgeable about the tradition, see what it has to say in terms of speaking to you, and give it the benefit of the doubt, because it's been around for a very long time, and it's going to be around after all of us are gone. I think it has a kind of staying power that few works of literature do. So again, some people are offended, some people are not offended. I'm not surprised you're taking a contrarian view, Shireen. But for those of us who are offended or who do find certain passages in the Torah problematic, I think reinterpreting them in a way that's not literal is often the best way, at least in the Reform movement. And that's how a lot of people in the Reform, Reconstructionist, and conservative movement have tried to make meaning out of something that seems kind of meaningless to a lot of people today. Thank you for your comments. We are going to continue on page 586 with the Aleinu. So if you're able, please rise.
Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, lated kedula leotzer breshid, shelo sani kedake hashod, velo samanu kamishbechol adama, shelo sam kalkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kahol hamonam, vanachnu korim, umishtakavim umodim, Lifnei Melech, Malkei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ne'emar, V'haya Adonai, L'melech HaKol Ha'aretz, Vayom Hahu, Yeh Adonai Echad, U'Shemo, U'Shemo Echad.
I have the honor and the privilege now of inviting up board member Allison Frost, who is going to share some important announcements with you. And can I just say, it's kind of bittersweet, it's kind of a tease that I have such beautiful voices with me tonight. I have Leah and Zahara, and Leah's going to be moving to Santa Barbara to be closer to her family with her husband, and Zahara's going to be starting college in the fall. So I don't know if we're going to have them together again like this. So I'm really happy about this, but I'm also a little sad. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Allison. And these were up here too. I don't know. Maybe people could take one.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So for this week, Sunday, May 7th at 4 p.m. will be Bunny Goldstein's Celebration of Life. May 8th at 6 p.m. will be our annual membership meeting here with wine and cheese. So please be sure you come because it's important that we have a quorum and also the content of what Roberta will be talking about. The second Saturday mitzvah for Mother's Day weekend with trash pickup and taco lunch will start at CBS May 13th at 10 a.m. There'll be a night watch. Please RSVP online so that we know how much supplies we'll need. Our 3-day kickoff for the 70th anniversary celebration, if you don't have one of these, please pick it up on your way out, is going to be May 19th through May 21st. And we're almost sold out for our tickets for Saturday the 20th. So please RSVP. It's going to be a wonderful evening. And the Friday night Shabbat and Oneg will be beautiful, as well as the Sunday fun day for everyone. Coffee and chat with Rabbi and the VP, Deborah Greenstein, will be this Sunday, May 21st, or 2 Sundays, I guess, from now. 2 Sundays?
Not this Sunday.
Not Sunday, yes. Come for coffee and stay for that's the day we'll also have the fun day Sunday at 11 a.m. Soul Sisters Book Club, May 22nd on Zoom at 7 p.m. The book is The Last Rose of Shanghai. And also at this time, we'd like to give warm wishes to this week's birthdays and anniversaries. Happy birthday to Barbara Balick, Theodora and Josephine Soldinger, Candace Hacker, Marisa Stein, and Mike Rindau. It's French. I don't know. Happy anniversary to Donna and John Bonnick. Okay, have a great week. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. As we reach the end of our service, we think of those who are no longer with us, those who have died both recently and in seasons past. We remember those who have died during the past 12 months. Renee Munoz, Michael Kossin, Paul Dworsky, Ed Eston, Micah Bicel, Jill Daly-Katz, Gabriel Harrison Escalera, Colonel Ed West, Joe McCaffrey, Beverly Eigner, Ruth Morlett, Lords Blake, Othello Thornton, Alan Rosen, Fred Goldman, Ann Rapson, Bob Massey, Lucille Posner, Bunny Goldstein, William Bill Lenish, and Barbara Cossin. We also remember and honor the yahrzeits, the anniversaries of the deaths of Harry Conry, Irving Altman, Marilyn Armstrong, Geraldine A. Cohen, David Alpert, Martha Kahn, and Leona Greendorfer. And if anyone has a name they'd like to add, I invite you.
Marilyn William and Barry Jacobs.
The Mourner's Cottage is on page 598. If you're able, please rise. Yitgadal, Yitgadash, Shmei Rabbah, V'alma Divrach Hirutei V'yamlich Malchutei, V'chayachon U'yomechon V'chaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, V'agala U'bizman Kariv V'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Le'omei Amaya. Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitmamam V'yitnaseh. V'yithadar V'yitalel V'yitalal Shmei Kudasha B'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechamata, damiran b'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mamav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all those in mourning and comfort to all those who are bereaved. And let us all say amen. Please be seated. So we have a final song before we do the blessings. And Leah and Zahara, what are you going to sing for us tonight?
We're just going to sing Oseh Shalom. You can all join in. It's our final song. I'm not going to play guitar, though. Oseh Shalom b'mromav, uyaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Imru, Imru, Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'yal kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, V'yal kol Yisrael, V'yal kol Yoshvei Teva.
Okay, let's rise for the Kiddush and Motzi. You want to hold it?
Now we're doing the Kiddush.
Now we're doing Kiddush. We're doing the short version.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Baruch puri hagafen. Amen.
You want to do it?
L'chaim.
Okay, and now the Motzi in anticipation of our Oneg.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. That didn't work. Avon.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom.